Twilight is getting a reboot in the form of a TV series, and hopefully this one improves on the original. And although, in my opinion, the franchise had its ups and its downs, the one thing that worked best was its villains. Michael Sheen was great, well, other than his laugh. He stands out as my favorite performance from the series. But in a TV series, and recasting these roles, who would take them on? I've already casted the big three, as well as the Cullens, and it's now time to take a look at the villains of the series. Instead of going through the movies one by one, I decided to focus on the ones who had really the most impact and the most screen time, and combine them all into one video. So today I'm looking at Aro, Jane, James, and Victoria. So let's recast Twilight for today. First up, let's recast my favorite, as I stated before, Aro. Now, Michael Sheen brings this creepy vibe, this presence, and this real grace to him. He tiptoes his performance in a lot of different directions, but the one thing I can say about him is you never really know what he's gonna do. We need an actor of that similar caliber and weight, and someone who's probably the biggest name of the entire cast that we've assembled. Someone that draws you in, much like Sheen did. Now, Tom Hiddleston is the obvious and the perfect choice here. He's played one of my favorite vampires ever in Only Lovers Left Alive, but he has that presence. He's shown obviously that he can do a similar thing in Loki, but with Aro, I think he could bring on a different light to this role, and an interesting one. He can play this soft, unassuming, one where he says more in the quieter moments than he does in the loud ones. He has a perfect calculating nature, and this way about him that I just think that fits Aro incredibly well.
Well, the lights fire like neurons in a great brain. The lifts seem like the chambers of a heart. I move along its corridors like a cell in a network of arteries.
So Tom Hiddleston as Aro. Next up, let's talk about Jane. Now, I chose to do Jane and not her brother or really the rest of the group because Jane kind of stands out above the rest of them. I mean, she was given more screen time, and Aro seems to have her as a favorite and uses her power more than anyone else. Now, Jane, of course, is meant to be on the younger side, and I don't think it's explicitly said, but she seems to have turned into a vampire around the age of 12 or 13. And since Dakota Fanning was 15 at the time of filming, we're looking around that age. Now we need a powerhouse of a younger actor. Someone who doesn't feel like 13, but looks it. It's important she stands out performance-wise amongst the pack, even though her outward appearance looks unassuming. Now, Julia Butters delivered one of the best child performances maybe ever in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She was only 11 at the time, but man, just listen to this kid.
I don't like names, like Pumpkin Puss, but since you're upset, we'll talk about that some other time.
She seems like an older woman trapped in a young kid's body, just in the way she presents herself. And also, she was great in The Gray Man. Now she's 14, and I think she's perfect. It might even outshine those older adult actors. So Julia Butters as Jane. Next up, let's do James. Now, James from the first movie is an interesting choice in terms of casting. I mean, listen to the description of him in the book. James was described as being tall, average build, average looking, and due to his unattractive facial features, he seemed unassuming. He also had short brown hair. In the movie, however, we get a blonde supermodel. Now, this is something we can correct. And although we got the right feel from the character in the original, I think we can really double down on the enjoyment of hunting and tormenting his victims, and really that sadistic nature of him. I landed on Iwan Rheon, who would knock this out of the park. I mean, this man would fit perfectly in a more grounded treatment of this material, and I mean, his look just really leans into a vampire as well. Take any of his scenes of Game of Thrones as a preview, and you'll see how wonderful he'd be here.
You forgot to ask one question. You forgot to ask if I'm a liar. Everything I told you is a lie. This isn't happening to you for a reason.
So Iwan Rheon as James. Lastly, we have Victoria. Now, Victoria seems like an afterthought of a villain. They needed someone who had a good reason to come after Bella, and Victoria just seemed like the best option there. That being said, she's still an important part of the franchise. And while both actresses who took on the role did a decent job of bringing her to the screen, I'd like to see more screen time. Help the character grow. That's why I ended up landing on Jane Levy, who I think could work wonderfully here. I mean, she's shown a ton of range, but specifically, she's my favorite in Evil Dead remake. I think she can play deranged and unhinged, seeking revenge, but she also has this face and this look in her eyes that seems like she could crack at any moment. She's got that little bit of crazy we need. I feel like she's an actress who could transform this role.
Understand? There was something in the woods, David. And I think it's in here with us.
So Jane Levy as Victoria. So there are the villains of Twilight. Do you want me to come back for the wolves? Let me know in the comments below. As always though, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.